The Paris Peace Agreement on Cambodia is an international treaty. Any international treaty must be respected, because otherwise it will set a very bad precedent, very bad example for other international treaties. The credibility of the signatories and the credibility of the international community is at stake. So I would like to draw first a lesson from the implementation of the Paris Peace Agreement on Cambodia. Definitely, the UN left too soon, because you cannot bring back democracy, restore democracy, just in 1 year or 2 years. Otherwise, the non-democratic, the anti-democratic force will take over and will dominate the situation again. I think the lesson has been learned in the former Yugoslavia, when the United Nations forces remained longer, more than 2 years. And also in East Timor. East Timor was a success story because the UN remained long enough to stabilize the situation, to allow democracy to take roots, which is not the case of Cambodia. There are three aspects, three chapters in the Paris Agreement. One is related to peace. The second is related to reconstruction after the war. And the third is related to democracy or democratization. I think for the first two part, it is relatively satisfactory because the war was ended. There was a massive injection of funds, international assistance to help the reconstruction of Cambodia. What is really problematic and very disappointing is the chapter on democracy. And in the chapter of democracy, there are many aspects. I think that the other panelists will elaborate on those different chapters. As for me, I would like to stress one particular aspect of the democratic process. It's related to elections. We are peaceful, non-violent, freedom fighters. Therefore, we not only believe on elections, but we count, and we only count on elections. What does the Paris Peace Agreement say about election in Cambodia? It says that Cambodia must organize authentic and periodic election. So we have to analyze the word authentic. Authentic means free, fair, and open election. And since the election organized by the United Nations in 1993, Cambodia has never seen free, fair, and open election. I'm speaking on behalf of the Cambodia National Rescue Party, which is the only credible opposition party. At the last two elections, which we took part to, we collected 45% of the popular vote. And this in spite of very serious irregularities, election irregularities in favor of the ruling party. Had those elections been a little bit more free, more fair, we definitely would have won those elections, 45%. And what is the situation now? We have been banned. We have been dissolved. And all our leaders have been excluded, banned from politics for 5 years. And this ban could be prolonged for another 5-year period. And after we being banned, our party dissolved, the ruling party organized a fake election without any participation of the CNRP. Then they managed to win 100% of the seats at the National Assembly. 125 seats on 125 seats. This fake election in no country which pretend to be democratic. Any party cannot win 100% of the seats, especially when a party which won at least nearly half of the popular vote when it could participate in those elections was not allowed to take part. And now the election, we can see there's no way the election can be considered free, given the atmosphere of fear and intimidation, even of terror. Anybody can be arrested immediately on the spot if they express any criticism against the regime. And not only political opponents. I'm thinking of environmentalists, journalists, the youth, even singers, religious people, the monks could be arrested. So how can you call this election free? Impossible. And fair. No way it is fair in any way. The election is organized by the Electoral Commission, named National Election Committee, the NEC, which is totally controlled by the ruling party. And this election can only be manipulated, not only on voting day, but since the establishment of voter lists. I'm grateful to NDI, the American National Democratic Institute, which first denounced the manipulation of the voter list. So elections in Cambodia is a foregone conclusion and open. Now Hun Sen chooses his opponents. He does not allow any real opponents who would be independent, which would not need his money, which is not afraid of his threat. We would not be allowed to take part. So proper elections is very crucial. And what can we do to ensure better elections in the future, especially next year in June 2022, there will be commune or local elections, and the following year in July 2023, there will be national elections. Then Cambodia really will be at the crossroad if free and fair and open elections are allowed to take place. I think the West should use its soft power more than any sanctions, threat, etc. It's soft power because the West is the position, and only the West is in the position to set the standard for legitimate elections. And only legitimate elections can bring about legitimate government. I think Hun Sen will be sensitive if Western countries say that we would not recognize any election which are not in line with what the Paris Peace Agreement has stated, authentic, meaning free, fair, and open election. And this would have far-reaching consequences if the Western, including the United Nations, which have been sponsoring the Paris Peace Agreement, if the next election are not in line with international standards. I think the world community, except maybe China, should say that no, these elections are not valid, are not legitimate. And any institution, any government stemming from such election will not be considered legitimate. This would have far-reaching consequences on the Hun Sen regime. So Hun Sen will have to consider twice before going on with his plan to organize fake elections. So thank you very much.